Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt. This is 9:30 a.m. The Answer, and we're talking about the law and gospel of adoption. Law and gospel is my favorite thing to do on the radio because at my church, when the pastor gives a sermon, he always talks about the Old Testament and the New Testament. And so when I was thinking about moving my office, the pastor was also thinking about starting a new branch of the church, give birth to a new church. And he said, you know what we should do, Todd? We should find one of those strip malls, and we can have our locations right next to each other. You can be the law and we'll be the gospel. And we never did that, but it was a seed that was planted many years ago. And when the radio station invited me to have a program, I thought, that's what I'm going to do, law and gospel. And it's very difficult to find people from the church to be brave enough to be on the radio. You know, they'll give a sermon to their church, but they don't want to give a sermon to the whole city live, unscripted.
No pressure.
This is live? No, I'm just kidding. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, Andrew, let's go back to your background a little bit. Tell us about your family and your connection to adoption.
So my family and my connection to adoption is well, I'll just start. This is a big part of sort of my faith, my foundation as a man, as a husband, a father, a neighbor. First, my family, my wife Kelly, and I have a wife Kelly, and I have three fantastic children. We have Maya, Ellie, and Aiden. They're 19, 16, and 12 as of a day and 14 minutes ago.
Oh, great.
Something like that.
I love that you know
so
that.
he's 12.
14 minutes.
Yeah. And so our youngest, we made him from scratch. That's our phrase. When you adopt, you always have a hard time wanting to, it's hard to know how do you describe your children or other people's children. And I'll keep this appropriate, but I heard somebody say, if you wouldn't say it about a woman's chest, you shouldn't say it about someone's children. And I'm not good at keeping rules like that, so we just say, well, we made our son, and then God made and brought our daughters to us. So our two daughters, I'll start with Ellie, who's 16. She showed up at our doorstep unannounced a little after 11 o'clock one night when she was 8. Unexpected. She was in foster care, and the agency took her to the wrong house. She needed a place to stay that night. The woman that was caring for her had to go to the hospital, and they brought her to the wrong house. They didn't bring her to the wrong house. They brought her home, but we didn't.
God's plan, right?
God's plan.
Exactly.
Porch light was off,
Yeah.
you're in my boxers answering the door, and we fell in love with Ellie. We had been foster parents already to adopt. Our goal was to adopt. Our calling was to adopt. Our son was made to have siblings. He was not made to be alone, and that has borne out to be exactly true over all these years. And so we had her for a week, and at the time our calling had been to adopt children younger than our son. That's just, God starts you in a path, and we took it, and then he guides you once you get moving. And when Ellie showed up, we fell in love with her, and in fact her and our son had a very special bond that they still have today. Brother and sister, they fight like brother and sister, which is good. And but they have a connection that's been very special, and God used that. So she went back. And we asked, what's her story? Can we adopt her?
Because there's a whole legal process.
Yeah, she went back to the parents, and they said, she's actually going to be adopted right now. This is great for her. And we said, well, okay, but if something changes, God said you can have her. And so fast forward 6 months later, we got a call, and they said, hey, how about you watch Ellie tonight? She needs someone to watch her. And we said, absolutely. We have been asking for her and praying for her and wanting her for 6 months since we met her.
Wow.
And the next day they said, how about she never leave? And we said, let's go. Let's do it. And so it normally takes 6 months for us because of the circumstances of how long she'd been in care. They said, we can do it in 5 if you're cool with that. And we said, let's go. So we did. Fast forward, so that was our family. We were a family of 4. We could all fit in an Uber. And fast forward about 6 years, and Maya entered our life, which is absolutely beautiful. And she was my wife's student. She actually showed up to the 5th grade girls' Sunday school class that my wife taught for 1 year with some of the girls. She was, for a very short period of time, at Boysville, which was really doing a wonderful job for Maya. And she got to know my wife a little bit in 5th grade girls' Sunday school class as a freshman in high school. And I felt something special about her. Didn't tell her. She wouldn't have believed me anyway. And we didn't see her for a while, and then she showed up at my wife is a teacher and headmaster for a charter school, Founders Classical Academy in Schertz. And the start of Maya's sophomore year, she had gotten permission to go to this charter school, and Boysville took her like it was one of her kids, while all the other kids went to another high school. And the first day of school, meet the teacher night, there was my wife as her math teacher,
Wow.
and also the soccer coach. And my wife said, "You're on the soccer team now. We need girls," with Ellie. And we just really loved Maya. And then we just got to know her, though, just as a student. My wife mentored her as part of a small program through Boysville. And then COVID came, and because she was in care, they totally locked it down. She couldn't have visitors, couldn't leave, couldn't go to school in person. And we couldn't get a hold of her, but we found out that she needed to be not there.
Yeah.
And so we asked, can she come and live with us? And sure enough, she said yes. And we got relicensed in 4 weeks, which is,
Fast.
if you're listening, that's very
To
fast.
be a foster
To
family.
be a foster family. And I had a clear conviction. I had not mentioned it to my wife. It turns out she had a very clear conviction. If Maya wants to, she could be ours. Like, if you want parents forever, we'll be your parents forever. You got to be pretty low to want me to be your dad. But after a few months, she said, "Can you guys just adopt me? Is this real?" It was yes, we can. I don't think she even finished her sentence. We were there. We were there. And I'll share a little bit. I believe that's exactly what God has done with us through Christ, is that he's like, I've already got the whole thing worked out. Would you just please say yes? And so we waited till she turned 18 and she aged out, and a little over a year ago, at the start of her senior year, we adopted her. Now she's off at college at Texas Tech in the engineering program, and the best part is she's come home a couple times, not too many times, but a couple of times, and wanted to be home, and that's something we can mention. So that's my family. I was adopted by my father as legally my stepdad, but I never met my biological father.
Well,
I'm okay with that.
Let's break down the foster adoption, and then we'll come back to your adoption. So, Ava, what are some things that people need to know about fostering?
Well, I can't speak too much about fostering, but obviously everything's governed by Child Protective Services, and there's licensing and requirements. We were talking earlier today about how there's really not many requirements to make a baby, but when it comes to fostering and adopting through CPS, there's a lot of red tape and a lot of hurdles for sure that parents have to go through. And so I wanted to talk about, there's actually 3 ways into adoption.
Okay.
CPS and through the government is one of them.
Okay.
And then we have agency adoption. And so I don't play through agency adoption too much. I'm primarily through the private realm of adoption. And then there's really a couple of main types of adoption. So you mentioned already step-parent adoption.
Yep.
And that is when a step-parent comes into a child's life and a family is already formed. So really, in any type of adoption, it is just the legalization and finalization of a family that's been created for years.
Wow.
And so it's really just seeing that signature. I mean, it's nothing changes in the heart. I mean, it's been there.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think you felt that love very early
Yes.
when Maya came into your life,
Yes.
that you just knew. You just knew it.
But love isn't enough, right?
Well, not in law.
No.
I mean, money too, right? You need it.
Money.
It can be kind of expensive.
But there's a biological father.
Absolutely. So that goes to some of the adoption is really two cases. There's always a termination, and then there's the adoption. So I can't even get to an adoption case until I have figured out who are biologically connected to this child and going through the steps of terminating their rights.
Let me tell you a funny story. I was appointed as attorney ad litem for an unknown father in a CPS case, and somehow, I don't remember who told me or how I learned, but I searched the criminal case database, and I found this guy's name. And so I showed up to his hearing for the what do they call it when you make your pleading, guilty or not guilty, and the judge calls the roll to make sure everybody's there, and he stands up, and I said, "That's my guy." And when he went out in the hall with his defense attorney, I followed him, and after they talked about his plea bargain, I said, "Are you so-and-so?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "I'm your attorney." And
That's great.
he
Surprise.
really didn't know about the child, didn't want to be the father, and so I fulfilled my duty in finding him and representing him in that part of the CPS case.
Well, you got really lucky that kind of the court brought him to a good location, and you were able to just kind of,
Right.
the judge did the roll call, and
Yeah.
you're kind of able to spot him out.
So something that's interesting that actually we needed an attorney just like you, where Maya was 18 when we adopted her, and so she was no longer a court case. And I think the biggest surprise was the amount of background check that was required because she wanted to change her name. And it makes sense once you learn, well, you got to make sure you're not changing your name to avoid a crime or a
Yes.
debt.
Right.
But the adoption was the easy part.
Oh, yeah, 'cause she
Because
was
once
18.
she was 18,
Yeah.
there was not, so there are actually a lot of families that go from CPS, someone ages out of CPS, and then they'd call you. Because you still have to have, there's still stuff you got to go through, but
Yeah.
it really is just that signature.
You
that says
can adopt an adult also.
you can adopt it, which I have done.
Yes, yes, yeah. I had a triple adult adoption, which was really
Yeah.
easy. I mean, it was easy in the fact that it was just like, okay, let's all go to court. Like, let's line it up.
Well, you don't have to terminate the parents' rights in that type of case because it's with the consent
Yeah.
of the adult person.
So legally, I've always been fascinated by it's true in the Bible, it's true in the law, I believe, and that is that if I adopt an adult, they're my heirs,
Correct.
completely and totally. If I have a will that says all of my stuff goes per stirpes to my children, my children is everybody, including
Born
the child,
and adopted. yeah.
however we got them. However we got them, we got them,
Yeah.
and I think that's incredible.
Yes.
And so that's one of the things is that once you're an heir, you're an heir.
You're in here.
Yeah, and there's a Bible verse that I ran across about receiving an inheritance through adoption. So let's see if I can find it here real quick. I think it's Ephesians, maybe.
Chapter 4,
Well, I was
verses
looking
13 and
at
14.
Ephesians 1,
Ooh.
4 to 11.
It's a good one.
Or we'll talk about it more when I get my notes straight when we come back after the break. Stay tuned.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Each week, attorney Todd Marquardt talks about the law. His mission with the Talk Law radio show and podcast is to help you discover your legal issue blind spots. In the beginning, God had one law. Don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then came the 10 Commandments. Now we have federal, state, and municipal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws. Laws that might impact you without you knowing it. Listen to the show and drop a line on Facebook or email host@talklawradio.com and let the host know what you think of the show, the topics you want to hear, and whether you want to be a guest.